Welcome back, Wanderers. It's Naidra. In today's video, I'm going to show you guys the most up-to-date version of the Crushing Hands build. This new update is allowing us to do trillions of damage and get through pits and all endgame content really quickly. But there is a couple of things that you need to know to make sure that this build works appropriately. We are going to be using Mystic Circle with this build, and we're also going to pair that up with the Shatter aspect as well. So first off, I'm going to show you guys how this works by jumping into a low-level pit tier. And then after that, I will show you guys the equipment. We'll go through the skill tree, Paragon board, and all of that other good stuff as well. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. We're just going to start with a quick pit tier 100. I'm not going to go through the whole pit, but I just want to show you guys how the mechanics work and how we can take full advantage of the damage output with this. There are a couple of things, like I mentioned, that you need to know to make sure that we're fully maximizing on this and we're not missing out on anything. And then, of course, also so that we can make sure we're speed farming and we're clearing through the higher pit tiers a little bit faster. So what needs to happen is first we need to pull all of our enemies in, as many as possible. So again, we can take advantage of that shatter effect. And then once we've got that going, we'll activate our defensives and then we'll start spamming away. We're also going to be activating Mystic Circle frequently. For those of you that don't know how the Mystic Circle works, it's pretty simple. Once the Mystic Circle is activated, as long as you're standing within the Mystic Circle, then your damage output is going to be significantly increased, especially if we've got the additional Mystic Circle potency on our gear, which we'll take a look at in just a moment. So we'll maximize on what we can do with this. And just to preface, I do not have perfect gear. This is not a fully optimized build just yet, but even still, we're able to do a significant amount of damage and get through pretty much all of the end game content. So let's go ahead and take a look at this and get some enemies in a group, and we'll activate our defensives and then pull them in, and then we'll start spamming, and you should see billions and trillions of damage coming out from each one of those as long as they're in groups. So once again, Vortex, start attacking, and then we should see the 86, 900 plus billion. Perfect. And then let's take a look at one more group. So again, if you're not using this correctly, you're not going to see those trillions of damage. So let's go for one more group before we take a look at our skills, equipment, and everything else. We've got a few monsters here. Go ahead and vortex them in. Hunter. And boom. And then last one here. Perfect. Awesome. So now that you guys know how this works, let's take a look at the equipment, and then we'll go through the skill tree, Paragon board, Spirit Hall, Mercenary, all of that other good stuff as well. So starting off with our equipment, the first thing we'll take a look at is going to be our Rod of Kapaliki. As always, this is going to be crucial in our builds, and this is probably going to be used in every single build for the Spiritborn for this season. So that being said, the things to primarily focus on with this is going to be our chance for core skills to hit twice. We really want to try to masterwork this all the way up if possible. If not, the second best option for us is going to be the maximum resource. Because our damage is increased based on the amount of resource that we have, that does increase that overall damage output. So it's really important that we take as much maximum resource from our equipment as possible. And then for our runes, we are using Pock and K rune for this guy. So this is going to invoke the Druid's Earthen Bulwark for 3 seconds. Because we're going to be using so much of our resource all of the time, that means our Earthen Bulwark should be up pretty much 100% of the time as well. So this is really going to help us with our defensives. Taking a look at our boots, we're going to be using the duelist aspect, which we use on pretty much almost all of the builds as well. We want to put some focus on dexterity, maximum life, and armor for our stats, where ideally we want to try to masterwork our maximum life all the way up. I really don't have the best of luck with masterworking. I've tried it over and over and over again, and for some reason I just can't land on it, so I just kind of gave up. But if you have better luck at this than I do, masterwork maximum life, as it's going to help you with your overall tankiness. For our tempers, we're going to be taking barrier generation and movement speed. Taking a look at our pants, we're going to be using the interdiction aspect, and then once again, max life is crucial on this, and we want to have some armor. And then lastly, we're taking +2 basic skills, as many as possible here. For our tempers, we're going to be tempering on barrier generation and maximum resolve stacks. Because there are so many different benefits to having maximum resolve stacks, we're getting more damage from this, we're getting more damage reduction from this as well, and from multiple different sources. It is really important that we're also masterworking this all the way up if possible as well. So if you get the opportunity to, put all three of your masterwork into maximum resolve stacks. Looking at our gloves, we're going to be taking the redirected force aspect with dexterity, attack speed, and this one changes slightly. We are going to want to have lucky hit chance to regenerate your primary resource. Because we are no longer using the Midnight Sun Ring, we do need to make sure that we have some form of resource generation or resource regeneration, I should say. So the best way to do that is by adding the stat onto either our gloves or your ring, wherever you can get it, but you really only need to have one of those. When we look at our tempers, we are using Mystic Circle like I mentioned earlier, so we want to also make sure we temper on the Mystic Circle potency. And then we are also frequently using Vortex. And so in order to make sure we keep everyone within our Mystic Circle, we want to have the largest Vortex size possible. And so Vortex size is going to be crucial for this as well. When we look at our masterworking, we want to masterwork our attack speed. We did lose the Moonrise aspect for this build, so we do want to try to make up for that loss in attack speed in a different way. And so the perfect way is going to be by masterworking attack speed on your gloves and a couple of other items as well. Looking at our armor, we are using the Shroud of False Death. This is just too good to not take. The +1 to all passives is extremely helpful. The damage output is extremely helpful, and the max life is also really helpful for this too. If you're masterworking this, I would try to go for max life to help with your tankiness. Your damage on next attack is great, but that really only happens after entering stealth mode, and so that's not something that we're maintaining and utilizing all the time. So maximum life is going to be the best option for masterworking. If you don't have the Shroud of False Death, that's okay. You can also use a regular Ancestral Legendary. We just want to make sure we're adding the Binding Morris aspect to that. For tempering for your chest armor, I would at least recommend going with Barrier Generation and keep it similar to what we have on our pants. Jumping into our helmet, we're using the Helm of Apprehension aspect. And so with this, we want to focus on getting some dexterity and max life out there, along with max resource. Like I mentioned, when we were looking at our Rod of Kepaliki, we really want to try to have the most amount of maximum resource possible, as the Rod of Kepaliki does do up to 3% times increased critical strike damage for each point of vigor that you spend. And because your core skills can consume all of your vigor, that means it's tremendously increasing your damage output by having this. So really important that we have maximum resource on our helm. For tempers, we have barrier generation once again, and we have maximum resolve. When we look at our masterworking for this guy, we want to masterwork maximum resolve stacks once again. Like I said, I don't have very good luck with masterworking, and I also just don't have the patience for it. But if you do and you're getting better luck, go for the maximum resolve stacks. And then for your runes, we're going to be using Tam and Zal for this guy. Tam allows us to cast a non-channeled core skill 8 times so that it can take advantage of the Zal rune, which gives you 20% maximum life for 6 seconds. Because we're constantly casting core skills, that means we're going to be getting our maximum life basically 100% of the time. Looking at our amulet, we have the Banished Lord's Talisman as usual. Again, same thing with this guy. When we're looking at our masterworking, we want to go for the attack speed as much as possible. This is going to help us maintain a attack speed of 100%. 100, I would say, would be the minimum we want to use for this, as that's going to help us maintain our barriers, and that's going to help us with our overall damage output as well. So masterwork your attack speed. If you can't, max life does help with tankiness, but the attack speed is what's going to give you the upper hand here. And then a couple of things that have changed. Looking at our ring, we're using the Fell Soothsayer aspect. We're also taking dexterity, maximum life, and attack speed with this one as well. If you already have your attack speed at 100, you don't need to masterwork your attack speed, but the important one to look at here is going to be your max life. We want to try to go for all 3 masterworks on max life. If not, you could also use it on your Mystic Circle potency, as that is going to help you, but your max life is going to help you with your overall tankiness, and especially if you're planning on taking this into a higher level pit tier. If you're going anywhere over 130, you're definitely going to want to make sure that you have your maximum life masterworked all the way. And then lastly, we have our Circle of Planes Power. This is what makes Mystic Circle work. This is how we can activate it. So it is crucial that we have that on this build. If we don't, it's not going to work the same. For the stats, we're looking at Dexterity, Max Life, Attack Speed once again. Same idea here, Masterwork your maximum life. For your tempers, we're going to have Resource Generation and Mystic Circle Potency. And then for our gems, we've got diamonds in our amulet and our rings. That's going to help us with our overall resistances. Although, as usual, our resistances are probably not going to be maxed out. As you can see, I have some significant area of opportunity when we're looking at our overall resistances. But because we do have a lot of life, we are constantly hitting our targets and we're killing them pretty quickly. You really shouldn't have to worry about your resistances. As long as you can keep your life over 12,000, you're good to go. For our armor, we're using Amethyst. This is going to help us with our barrier generation, and same thing with our pants as well. Now, that being said, let's take a look at our skills, and then we'll jump into the Paragon right after that. So for skills, we're just going to take any of the basic skills just so that we can move on down to the second part of the skill tree. I took 1 point into Thrash and 1 point into Enhanced Thrash, but it really doesn't matter which one you pick for this part. Jumping on over to our core skills, we're going to be taking 5 points into Crushing Hand. We'll take it up to Enhanced Crushing Hand, and we'll finish it up with the Rampant Crushing Hand. Again, this is another source of increased damage output for having maximum resolve stacks. We will be taking 1 point into Vigorous, and then we're going to take 3 points into Balanced Exertion. And then lastly, we're also going to take 3 points into Follow Through before we move on down to the next part of our skill tree, which is the focus skills. In order to ensure that we're keeping all of our enemies within the Mystic Circle, Vortex is going to be really important for this. So we're going to take 1 point into Vortex. We're going to make our way up to Enhanced Vortex and finish it up with Measured Vortex. You can also use this with Soar if you'd like to. However, then it's going to take away from one of our aspects in order to be able to trigger our Vortex. So I think it's just easier to go with just Vortex and skip on the Soar. And then we're also going to take 1 point into Mirage and take it up to Unrestrained Power for 3 points. We'll take 1 point into Ravager, taking it down to Enhanced Ravager, and then finishing it up with the Measured Ravager. On the left-hand side, we've got 1 point into Focal Point and then 3 points into Apex. That being said, we'll make our way down to our defensive skills, where as usual, we're going to take 1 point into Endurance, make our way up to Perseverance for 3 points. We're also going to take 3 points into Armored Hide, to Enhanced Armor Hide, and finish it up with Reinforced Armored Hide. We are not going to be taking Counterattack since we are not using the Ring of Midnight Sun. We're not going to be able to trigger that counterattack passive at all times without even having it on our bar. So with that, we're not going to be wasting any points into counterattack, but we will be taking 1 point into Scourge, take it down to Enhanced Scourge, and finish it up with Adaptable Scourge. For our potency skills, we've got 3 points into Resilient and 3 points into Dominant. We're also going to take 3 points into Potent and 3 points into Furnace. And then making our way down to our ultimate skills, we're taking 3 points in Resolution as usual, 3 points into Spiritual Attunement, and 3 points into Supremacy. I don't know if this will ever change, but this is just too good to not take these. And then one difference that we have for our ultimates is we are putting 5 points into the Hunter, taking it down to Harmonious Hunter, and wrapping it up with Exalted Hunter. And then we'll finish up the skill tree with our key passives here, and we're going to be taking Prodigy's Tempo. All right, so let's take a look at our Paragon board. For the Paragon board, the first portion of it is going to look very familiar. So we're going to be taking the Spirit Glyph for this guy. A lot of critical strike damage we're getting from this, so it is just too good to not take. We'll make our way over to the second board, which is going to be the Viscous Shield. And from this, we're going to be using the Ritual Glyph. This is going to significantly help us with the Mystic Circle damage and also our potency as well. So this will tremendously help, as this build does revolve a lot around Mystic Circle. Jumping onto our third board, we're going to be taking the Revealing board, and with that we're going to pair it up with Colossal. We're just going to get enough strength so that we can activate the glyph. However, once you've filled up all 5 of your boards, we'll circle back to this, and we'll also additionally take the Artifice node, and we'll also take the Venom Weaver. But for now, because we don't have enough points to achieve that, we're just going to take the bare minimum from this board here. Jumping into our fourth board, we've got the Sapping board. We're going to pair this one up with the Hubris glyph. The main purpose of taking this glyph is it's going to really help with the maximum resource. So as you can see at this point, I'm getting 39 maximum resource from just this glyph alone. Really, really helpful, again, especially for using this with the Rod of Kepaliki, which we pretty much have to. And then for our last board, we're going to be taking the Convergence board, and we're pairing this one up with the Fitness glyph. There is a little opportunity to make some change to this last glyph here. I am wanting to take advantage of the critical strike damage and also the vigor replenishment that we're getting from this as well. So we're really double dipping into this one. But if you'd like, you can also use the cannon glyph with this. It's entirely up to you. Once we filled out our board, we're probably going to add some additional decks on this one as well, as we do have plenty of nodes left for us to take here. And then we're going to make our way down to the Ruinous glyph. Eventually we'll take this additional non-physical damage node. Same thing with the one down here, along with the third non-physical damage node that's still available to take. And then lastly, we'll maximize on a little bit more life down on the bottom here as well, once we have enough points. But for now, this will have to do. Looking at our Spirit Hall, we're going to be taking Jaguar for our primary, and we're also going to be taking Jaguar for our secondary spirit. And then our mercenaries are going to stay the same as normal. So we're taking Rahir for our hired mercenary. This is going to be utilizing the shield charge down to Rahir's guard. We're going to be taking Provoke only to make our way down to Mocking Lure, which is going to increase our damage output to enemies that are taunted by Rahir. And then for our reinforcement, we're taking Baryana, who's utilizing Bloodthirst. And then this is going to trigger anytime a player casts the skill in combat. Bloodthirst is going to help with our attack speed. Again, you should already be at 100% minimum to make this work, or to make sure you're not feeling the reduced resistances. But this extra 10% is just going to help us out overall. With that said, I showed you guys how to use this build. Again, really important that you're following those steps, keeping your enemies within the Mystic Circle, vortexing them in, activating your defensives, and then just start spamming. Where you may see a little bit of area of opportunity with this specific build is if you're getting into the later levels of the pit, 130 plus, when you get to the boss. If you're not able to activate your shatter effect, then you're going to be doing a lot less damage to them. If you guys enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below. If there's any other builds that you would like me to test out for you, feel free to let me know in the comments as well. Until next time, Wanderers.